Prologue. The Cathedral before the crack. There are civilizations that build temples to the unseen, and there are those that build temples to what can be seen. On Gildara Prime, faith was not hidden. It was displayed, reflected, amplified, measured. Illumination became devotion, visibility became virtue. And over time, the distinction between belief and performance began to dissolve. This was not considered corruption, it was considered progress. The faithful gathered in structures of glass and mirrored light, not to disappear into mystery, but to be seen within it. Offerings were counted, radiance was scored, revelation was streamed. And so a question emerged, quietly at first, then everywhere at once. If faith can be measured, what exactly is being worshipped? This is a record of Gildara Prime, a world where light was never absent and truth became difficult to see. The Church of Radiant Affluence. World Gildara Prime. Part 1. The Gospel of Gleam.
The planet shimmered before we even broke the atmosphere, a sphere of mirrored continents, seas polished by ritual, and towers that bent sunlight into sermons. From orbit, Gildara Prime looked less like a world and more like a chandelier awaiting ignition. The wanderer hummed in bemused reverence. Her weave lattice caught the glow of 10,000 cathedrals refracting their faith into the sky, each one competing to outshine the next. "Keeper," murmured the captain, leaning over the observation veil. "How do they see each other through all that light?" "They don't," I answered, "but they believe visibility and illumination are the same thing." The planet's capital, Sanctum Aurea, pulsed at the equator like a beating gem. From this distance, the avenues were rivers of gold, not metaphor, but literal. Nanometal dust was embedded in every walkway to ensure that each pilgrim left a shining footprint. The faithful called it the path of divine residue.
The High Luminary and his chariot.
The Church of Radiant Affluence did not call its sermons worship. They were showcases, each broadcast across the planet's devotional network, complete with product sponsors and intermissions for reflection breaks, where the audience could purchase branded meditative beverages. At the pinnacle of the Grand Cathedral of Lumenhall stood the High Luminary Solon Vey, his robe an embroidered mirror that bent every spotlight back toward the congregation. He did not walk to the pulpit. He arrived. A pair of gilded doors at the rear of the nave opened with hydraulic grace, and through them rolled his faith chariot, a 6-wheeled platinum vehicle ornamented with the sigils of prosperity. Its engine emitted a low harmonic drone designed to resonate with the abundance frequency of the faithful. The crowd gasped. The faithful wept. Vey raised his jewel-encrusted scepter, a hollow tube containing a rotating prism core. Its light splintered into rays that struck the mirrored walls, doubling and tripling until the cathedral bloomed with radiance. He smiled and began. "Brothers and investors in the currency of belief, let your hearts shimmer. Let your accounts of devotion reflect your spiritual creditworthiness." His voice filled the vaulted hall, carried by invisible drones that fine-tuned every syllable for emotional optimization. "Faith is not poverty of means. It is proof of multiplication. Give, and you shall receive interest compounded eternally." The crowd roared, throwing offerings of digital tokens into the tithe stream, where each donation's glow was tallied in real time. Behind him, an immense hollow altar displayed a rising bar graph. Planetary Faith Index, up 2.3% this quarter.
The Doctrine of Gleam.
Every citizen of Gildara was baptized not with water, but with light certification. Infants were presented to the Ministry of Illumination for spectral alignment, ensuring their personal radiance met minimum glow standards. The dull were considered spiritually underexposed. The Church claimed that the divine communicated through brightness itself, and therefore all true believers must reflect. Houses gleamed, vehicles gleamed. Even the refuse collectors gleamed, their uniforms embedded with reflective sequins to remind citizens that holiness never took a day off. The captain exhaled softly as the crew watched from the observation veil. "It's beautiful," they said, then hesitated, and somehow nauseating. "The dual condition of glamour," I replied. Beneath the spectacle, data streams whispered. The faithful were tracked by their radiance scores, a measure of spiritual worth derived from clothing luminosity, tithe regularity, and social devotion indices. Those who fell below the acceptable threshold were dimmed, denied entrance to certain sanctuaries until they attended corrective reflection seminars. Even dusk was forbidden. Artificial mirrors orbited the planet to ensure constant twilight. Night, that ancient intimacy of shadow, had been declared a theological hazard. During each broadcast, the luminaries' technicians monitored key performance indicators. Tithe surge ratio, how fast donations spiked during moments of emotional crescendo. Audience radiant engagement, smile duration measured by facial recognition. Faith retention curve, how many stayed through the closing prayer ad. An assistant once reported a drop in the tithe surge ratio. Vay paused mid-sermon, turned toward the analytics screen, and adjusted his tone. "Brothers, I feel the light of generosity dimming. Shall we let shadows win?" The metric leapt. Applause thundered. "Excellent," he said to his aide. "Mark that inflection for future use."
The congregation of the lesser shine.
Far below the glass towers, the underlight districts stretched outward, half-lit zones where those who could not afford perpetual brightness dwelled. Here, mirrors were cracked, and faith was measured in candlelight. Families gathered around small reflective plates, watching replays of the luminaries' sermons through smuggled screens. One woman, her face lined and soft, whispered to her son, "Maybe next week we can afford the reflection fee. Maybe then we'll be seen again." Her son asked, "Does the divine not see us now?" She hesitated. "The divine, yes. The accountants, I'm not so sure." From the Wanderer's silent observation orbit, I recorded, Gildara Prime confuses reflection for revelation. They polish glass until it mistakes itself for God. They call radiance holy, forgetting that even stars are born in darkness. The luminary preached that to see oneself reflected infinitely was to approach the face of the divine, but mirrors do not show what is true, only what already believes itself visible. The crew fell silent, save for Luca, who finally murmured, "It's strange, Keeper. They claim the divine is light, but all I can see is blindness." I answered, "That is often the first symptom of too much illumination."
Closing of the first light.
At the sermon's conclusion, the luminary dismissed his congregation with a flourish. "Go now, radiant children, and let your light be taxable." The faithful erupted in joyous chant, raising their tithe bands toward the vaulted dome. An automated drone hovered, spraying perfumed mist, Ode to Divinity trademark. Outside, as the crowd dispersed beneath the endless glitter, a small group of janitors knelt to clean the marble. One paused, wiping sweat, her hand leaving a dark streak upon the stone. For a brief moment, that imperfection caught the fading light and refracted it perfectly. None of the auditors noticed. But the Wanderer did. And she hummed a quiet note that only I could hear, a tone that tasted like pity and prophecy. End Part 1. Stay tuned for Part 2 of The Church of Radiant Affluence on Wanderer Chronicles Radio. Thanks for listening.